Okay, this is Kev, and I want to talk about why it's good for a bass player to learn how to play the guitar. And I think there's three, like, really significant reasons why to do that. Just like and I'm structuring this like 5 paragraph essay from middle school, and I friggin' hate that because I just had such an issue with that as a kid. But I'm doing it anyway because it's gonna work. And it's just kind of a coincidence that there happen to be three reasons. But the first reason is kind of like exploring the range of chords. On bass, a lot of times we're thinking about like we're kind of thinking like we're kind of thinking within like an octave, whereas on the guitar we're kind of having a lot more room to play. And that's good and that's not anything wrong with the bass. It's just an opportunity to kind of like explore the chord in different contexts than we're used to on the bass, or the notes of the chord. And when we play the guitar, we can like more effectively play full chords, instead of just the arpeggio notes. And I find that's like really super rewarding because it breaks the bass player mindset. Like, it took me years to figure out how to like play melodies because I was playing the bass, and like I was always so attracted to the root note because in that pitch register, in those deep notes, you're just like there's so much extra gravity, um to like those deep root notes and those, like, basic arpeggio notes and stuff when you're playing over chords. Whereas when you're playing up higher, they become more notes are sound harmonically pleasing, or there's less dissonance up high as there is down low. Like, if I play on a bass and I just play like a major third, a G on the E string and a B on the A string, it sounds terrible because in the depth of that register, those two notes, even though that's like one of the prettiest sounding intervals, no dissonance here. But on the bass, it sounds like so, and I think that kind of applies more broadly, not just when you're playing the notes at the same time, but like the notes on a guitar just kind of. I'm playing over like an A major chord. It just kind of sounds nice. Whereas if I was playing on that bass, it would sound busy and kind of rhythmically random, and that's another reason. Okay, reason part A, reason 1B. Um, you're kind of more harmonically free in that way that I just described. Now, reason 1 is kind of melody, reason 2 is chords, and they both have this underlying thread of like the higher you are, the less things sound dissonant. And we use that example from the bass to show that like even one of the most pleasant sounding intervals will sound muddy if you're deep enough, and like that applies melodically and chord wise. And then like the third reason is that guitar is it's kind of easier to play as a solo instrument, and it's kind of easier to write songs on. And so when you kind of like play the bass by yourself a lot, you kind of start to develop certain like desires. Like, you're like, it just sounds so empty. I want to start playing chords, and I want to start playing like all kinds of stuff that the bass player usually doesn't do. And it's not that it's abnormal that makes it wrong. It's just that like in a band context, the bass playing chords, like, you can make it work if you like specifically arrange the band for it. But like, you're going to have to work harder to get chords to sound good on the guitar, and you're going to have to work a lot harder to get the band to work around that kind of bass playing, and you're going to not, and if you're working on that sort of stuff, that's very different than the kind of stuff that's normally required of a bass player, and that there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but it's just like an advantage of the idea of like, hey, pick up the guitar, see what you can do with the guitar, write guitar parts that carry like the chords of the song, or that carry some of the melodies of the song, and leave the bass to the bass. And then as a bass player, when you're doing that, as a, doing this, these are kind of reasons to play the guitar. But as a bass player, learning all this kind of reveals, as a part of like a, your whole musical upbringing and experiences playing and stuff like that. This isn't going to do it on its own, but it's part of the process of kind of learning what each instrument does well, and like what role each instrument should play. And so you become a better bass player relative to the guitarists you're playing with, relative to the other instruments you're playing, because you kind of are able to understand the way that they think a little bit better, and you're able to understand your role a little bit better as a bass player, and you're able to expand your bass playing. It's not just to understand the way the other people are thinking, but it's so you can do your job so much better, and so you can take some of the elements of harmony, of melody and of chords to the bass in a way that works for the bass. And that's a creative endeavor, and that's just so beautiful. So another reason, it sparks creativity in that process of figuring out how to be a better bass player. And it's just worth it in its own regard. It's not just like learn the guitar just so you can be a better bass player. Like, the guitar is great, and it's so similar to the bass because the first four strings are the same and everything. It's just worth it. It's just worth it. Yeah, I hope I've convinced you to buy a cheap guitar and explore a little bit. And I think your bass playing will thank you for it if you don't fall so far in love with the guitar that you quit the bass. So don't do that. That's it. Thank you so much.